What is the contribution of mythology to the richness and composition of literature that we all share today?
Mythos means story. And the images from mythos these are the things that enrich what we have today. A myth is a story about symbols using fundamental truths. And nothing is truer than love and war and peace. So no matter birth and death and marriage, betrayal, sadness, suicide, no matter what kind of story you're telling and what culture you have, the pursuit of these fundamental truths will always occur. Mythology is usually oral. And when it's oral, when it's unbound by words, by the written word, it is an ephemeral kind of desire. Right? So, when you bind them with the written word, what you get is testaments of human complexity.
Why is it essential for us to at least have some knowledge about it?
Whether you know this or not, you are in your own heroic story. And I think, as a student of literature, what you do is live knowing that you are in a heroic story. So, when you study mythology and when you study written literature, what you are getting are comparisons from almost 2,000 years old, even more than that, maybe 5,000 years old. And every single story and every single piece of literature you have is telling you, the literature student, that you are not alone, that this is not the first time that death is experienced, or love, or longing.
Am I afraid to love? Yes. Kasi first, afraid because loving is risky. Loving is cannot be measured or intangible. When these factors are present, there's nothing wrong with being afraid. Of course, there are risks. Second, whom am I going to love, diba? And third is, why am I going to love a person or, diba? So, yes, I am afraid to love.
No, kasi kung karapat-dapat naman talaga siya mahalin, bakit hindi ko gagawin? Kung siya naman talaga nagpapasaya sa akin.
Am I afraid of death? Yes, as well. Because, again, death is intangible. Cannot be calculated or cannot be measured. You don't know when. But one thing is certain, all of us will die. Then again, even though we know that we're going to die, I think we fear that the means of how are we going to die? You know, a natural death, accident. So those could be the source of our fear. And fearing, there's nothing wrong in fearing. No? Pero experts say that one must control one's fear. So, in other words, fearing is very natural. We must learn how to control it.
No. Kasi alam ko rin naman na doon din tayo lahat pupunta eh. Alam ko na temporary tayo lahat dito sa mundo to. Kaya nga I always treasure every moment I am with my family.
Orpheus and Eurydice. Two names that will always belong together. Two people who loved each other even beyond the shadow of death itself.
Orpheus and Eurydice, a myth that presents two fundamental human experiences, love and death. These two events are significant because it mirrors the experiences of real people. Love and death are dealt with in various ways by different societies, but both experiences are common to all human societies. Because the myth centers on these two ideas, it has succeeded in becoming an enduring and influential myth. These issues are universal, and because they transcend temporal as well as geographical boundaries, it is a myth that is influential today. The universal importance of this myth has its roots in two of the most profound of human experiences, love and death.
Her eyes just stared past him and her mouth.
Greek mythology are myths and legends belonging to the ancient Greeks, pertaining to their gods and heroes, the nature of the world, the origin and significance of their own cult and ritual practices. It's a part of religion in ancient and modern Greece and around the world as Hellenismos. Several Greek myths became famous around the world, and some of them even inspired famous novelists and playwrights in creating their masterpiece. One known example is the Greek myth Pyramus and Thisbe, which inspired the brilliant playwright and novelist William Shakespeare in writing in his famous tragic romance Romeo and Juliet. Although this one Greek myth is not as famous as the others, their stories surely capture the heart of everyone who read it. An undying love that could stand the hounds of hell, willing to sacrifice everything just to get back the lost half of his dying heart. A bittersweet tragic romance, the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. On his mother's side, Orpheus was more than mortal. He was the son of one of the Muses and Thracian prince. His mother gave him the gift of music, and Thrace, where he grew up, fostered it. The Thracians were the most musical of the people of Greece, but Orpheus had no rival there or anywhere except the gods alone. There was no limit to his power when he played and sang. No one and nothing could resist him. In the deep, still woods upon the Thracian mountains, Orpheus with his singing lyre led the trees, led the wild beasts of the wilderness. Everything animate and inanimate followed him. He moved the rocks on the hillside and turned the courses of the rivers. When he first met and how he wooed the maiden he loved, Eurydice, we are not told, but it is clear that no maiden he wanted could have resisted the power of his song. They were married, but the joy was brief. Directly after the wedding, as the bride walked in the meadow with her bridesmaids, a viper stung her and she died. Orpheus's grief was overwhelming. He could not endure it. He determined to go down to the world of death and tried to bring Eurydice back. He said to himself, "With my song, I will charm Demeter's daughter. I will charm the Lord of the dead. Moving their hearts with my melody, I will bear her away from Hades." O gods who rule the dark and silent world, to you all born of a woman needs must come. All lovely things at last go down to you. You are the debtor who is always paid. A little while we tarry up on earth, then we are yours forever and forever. But I seek one who came to you too soon. The bud was plucked before the flower bloomed. I tried to bear my loss, I could not bear it. Love is too strong a god. O king, you know, if that old tale men tell is true, how once the flowers saw the rape of Proserpine, then weave against for sweet Eurydice. Life's pattern was that taken from the loom. Too quick, see, I ask a little thing, only that you will lend, not give her to me. She shall be yours when her years span is full. No one under the spell of his voice could refuse him anything. He drew iron tears down Pluto's cheek, and made hell grant what love did seek. They summoned Eurydice and gave her to him, but upon one condition, that he would not look back at her as she followed him, until they had reached the upper world. So the two passed through the great doors of Hades to the path which would take them out of the darkness, climbing up and up. He knew that she must be just behind him, but he longed unutterably to give one glance to make sure. But now they were almost there. The blackness was turning gray. Now he had stepped out joyfully into the daylight. Then he turned to her. It was too soon. She was still in the cavern. He saw her in the dim light, and he held out his arms to clasp her. But on the instant she was gone. She had slipped back into the darkness. All he heard was one faint word: farewell. Expectations and experiences shape our understanding not only of objects but of life. Many of us shape our lives in reaction to our upbringing. Coming from the perspectives of the masters of literature, we have interviewed some professors from the oldest university in Asia, the University of Santo Tomas, about their views on the Greek mythology, Orpheus and Eurydice, a story of unending love not even death could end.
I believe that the story of Orpheus and Eurydice is considered as a classic because people in all generations can relate into it because it tackles the two fundamental events of life, which is love and death.
Orpheus and Eurydice is considered a classic because of its irrepressible freshness. It talks about love and death, and I'm sure everybody can relate to it.
Among the characters, I can relate myself to Orpheus. Because in the name of love, I'm willing to sacrifice everything, go beyond limits for my own happiness.
I would suggest it to everyone because considering it's a classic, everybody can relate to love and death. And especially death because it's kind of normal that relatives and loved ones die, and how they go through it is something everyone can relate to.
The story of Eurydice and Orpheus is considered as a classic mainly because it showed two metaphors such as love and death. And we all know that love is one of the universal things in the game of life.
I can refer this story to the youth in my generation because love is such a wonderful feeling. And I believe that literature is an avenue to find beauty in every aspect of life which is related to love.